Speak on the Show, episode 29 in the year of 2022. You ready? Let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's your boy R.W. Coolins with Speak on It. First and foremost, giving honor to the guy who allows me to come to you in this manner on a weekly basis. How's everybody out there doing? I hope everybody's had a good week. Hope you're having a good weekend. Start off the weekend anyway. Let's get these formalities out the way. Let's go ahead and get this out the way. rwcoolins.com. That's the website. You can go there, get all the information you need. All the links are there to follow. Broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube this morning, as we always do on Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. That's what we do here on the Speak on It show. You can also download the audio after the show on Spreaker.com or Apple iTunes under Speak on It show. Go ahead and download that, share it, and everything. No sound? You can't hear me? Don't play with me, man. Don't tell me you can't hear me. Brian Hoodie, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Appreciate the support, appreciate the support. Let me know if y'all can hear me. I think the volume's good. I don't know what's going on, unless it's on his end. Y'all let me know. Chime in. Oh, you got sound? All right, Zupons. Appreciate the support, bro. Thanks for tuning in. You know, we had these technical difficulties we talked about last week, but we're going to work them through. We're going to work through them. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you for tuning in. Where was I at? 844-904-2665, 844-904-2665. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. All we ask is if you call in, say what you mean what you say. If you chime in, we got a lot of topics we talk on. Everybody's got an opinion. If you have an opinion, don't feel free to chime in. You know, nobody's going to judge you. I'm not going to judge you. I mean, you know, that's what we do here on the Speak on the Show every Saturday morning. That's what we do here on the Speak on the Show. Zupons, my phone was hooked to my Bluetooth earbuds. Come on, man, get it together, bro. Get it together over there. I know you're in that college education classes and everything. I need to follow up with you, man, see how things are going with that. But yeah, you know, it happens to all of us. It happens to the best of us. Today, it's a straight talk, no chaser Saturday. Before we get into that, let's go here. Last year was the 10-year anniversary. I appreciate OT for hosting the show. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, commenting, you know, supporting the show for the 10 years. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole again, but it's been 10 years, and I appreciate everybody that supported up to this point and will continue to support going forward. I appreciate you. We had a good time. I appreciate the questions that OT asked me, try to blindside me on a couple of them, but you know, that's what we do. You know, you just say how you feel, say what you mean what you say. That's what we do here on the Speak on It show. Straight talk, no chaser. Saturday. First, we want to send our prayers and condolences for all those affected by Hurricane Ian down in Florida, all up the coast into Georgia, you know, South Carolina, North Carolina, all the way up the East Coast. Let's just be real, because it's affecting everybody with rains, torrential rains, and everything like that. But I have to say this, not to take away from everything that's happened down there, because this has nothing to do with the people per se. This has to do with the governor, Governor DeSantis, who is hell-bent and has spoken out loud and clear on all the other things that happen in this United States of America with, you know, damage, you know, federal aid towards hurricane damage and different things like that, with a tornado damage. But he's always been hell-bent about there should be no federal aid for these things, and Florida won't need their federal aid and everything. But at this time, he's asking for the aid. The hypocrisy is alive and well with the governor of Florida as well as other locations. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into that because I know there's people down there that are suffering, going through. They lost their homes and everything they've built. But these politicians who say they don't need at a certain time have to come back and say they do need. It's hypocritical because if until it affects them, it's not important. And I say that to you guys to say this. Be pause. Pause before you step back and try to criticize what someone else may need at a certain time because you don't think you will ever need it at any time. Pause before you do that. Pause before you put that out there, and pause before you look down on those who may be in need because you may not be in need at the time they are. Kamiko Soul King, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate your support. Appreciate the support. That's all I'm saying. I sit back and I watch these things and I read these things and I'm like, come on. Let's be real. You never know when tragedy might strike. So it's always in your best interest to not judge those that may be going through at a certain time because you never know when you may need that help. Just want to put that out there. Case in point. You know, at this time, Flint, Michigan and Jackson, Mississippi are still dealing with water problems after all these years. Flint, Michigan, we've known has been going on for a long time. Jackson, Mississippi, just recently. But here's the thing that I was reading the article, and I didn't write everything down, but I read the article on both of these locations, and they're so similar. In both of these cities, Flint, Michigan, and Jackson, Mississippi, have the highest or are highest African American populations in each one of these states, in Michigan and in Jackson, in Mississippi, Flint and Jackson. And it makes me wonder why. Why do these things happen in these areas and not others? Now, I don't want to get down that rabbit hole about, the racial discrimination and everything like that, but it's prominent in these cases. They knew the infrastructure was messed up. They knew these things were bad. They knew these things could happen, and they never did anything to repair them. And I bring this in the same lines of what happened with Ian, because these are the same type of politicians around DeSantis that don't feel it's important to take care of certain communities within their jurisdiction. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it, but let's keep everybody in Florida in our prayers while they rebuild and do what they have to do to get back on their feet. Wig Fall, appreciate support, bro. Appreciate support. Thanks for tuning in. 34 days till the midterms. We got 34 days till midterms. November 3rd, 34 days away for the midterms. I got one story I want to read about someone that's running who came up with some BS, something that's not out of the ordinary. But we'll get into that in a minute. But 34 days. And if you haven't been studying who's running or paying attention to who's running in your district or your governor or any of these type things, you can go back and listen to the other shows, because I've told you who, what, when, where, and why that you got to be looking out for. Who, what, when, where, and why, what they're planning to do if they get elected, with the election fraud per se that they said happened that we can't find any evidence on. All that, you can go back and listen to old shows. I've talked about it on every show. Just to give you a reason to go back and look at them. But 34 days. And if you haven't been paying attention up to this point, you're behind the power curve. Because this is an important election. I'm not going to say it's voter died, none of that kind of stuff, but it's one of those elections where we got to pay attention to who we're putting in these offices. Case in point, you got Ron DeSantis, as I just talked about, and I'm just going to keep beating him because there's a lot of people in the same boat. But moving on past that, just remember November 3rd, and I'm going to keep saying it up until November 3rd. Jenny Thomas, Clarence Thomas's wife, sat in front of the January 6th committee this week. And she was forthcoming with the information, but she made it a point in her opening statement to say nothing and none of her beliefs and nothing she had to do with the Stop the Steal rally or any of that kind of stuff she discusses or has discussed, or they have discussions about those type things and what she's doing and what she's supporting with her husband. This is what she said in her opening statement. There are no discussions about what she's doing, and he doesn't discuss cases with her. This is for all my married folk out there and those in relationships and those have been in relationships for long periods of time. Can you honestly say that you don't have discussions about what your interests are and what you're involved in any capacity at all with your significant other? Can you honestly say that you don't discuss what goes on your job or what happens behind the scenes on your job or any of those type of things with your significant other? Can you say you don't do that? Because I'm not saying they did. I'm not saying they didn't. But it's hard for me to believe that at the point that they're at and the position that he holds, that he has never talked about, discussed, or said anything to her concerning a case or cases that may be coming in front of the Supreme Court. And you can't tell me that she or he is not aware of some of the things she's involved in, because most of the time when you leave home, James Battle, good morning, my brother. Appreciate the support. Most of the time we leave home, if you're going to partake in some of your extracurricular activities, you throw, hey, I'm going to do such and such, I'll be back, or, I got a meeting with these people or those people, or whatever you're going to do, you throw that out there, because what it is you're confirming to your significant other where you may be in case something is needed. You also let them know that you're doing what you always say you're doing, and there's no misperception about where you may be or anything like that, unless you're lying about where you're going. Different story. But I'm just saying that it's hard for me to believe that they have never discussed any of his cases. They have never discussed her belief in QAnon. They never discussed her talking to John Eastman about the election and fake electors. And I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. You have yours, I have mine. I just don't see it. Now, what's your oath? I don't know. But we got people that lie on the oath all the time now. This week, Supreme Court Justice, the 116th Justice, only the 6th woman to ever grace a seat on the Supreme Court, took her seat as of yesterday and will be in the new term, which starts on Monday, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, I'm going to say this. You remember all the fanfare, all the celebration, everything that was revolving around Ketanji Brown Jackson being named to the Supreme Court? I remember y'all, everybody celebrated, everybody was happy, everybody said, oh, it's the first Black woman. They watched the hearings, all that kind of stuff that we did. Gary Burns, good morning, my brother. Good morning. Appreciate support. But to have her being about to be, or the ceremony yesterday, and to have her about to be seated on Monday in the new term, because that's when it starts, as the first African-American woman, only the 6th woman, the 116th person to ever sit on the Supreme Court, and there's no big fanfare, because what I'm starting to recognize is that we celebrate the accomplishment, but we don't continue to celebrate what it's all about. We celebrate the accomplishment, we celebrate the fact of what's going to happen, but once it happens, we fall back. We fall back by the wayside. And this is not just with this case, with Justice Brown Jackson. This is a case in a lot of situations that we'll celebrate it, yelling from the rooftops and everything like that, and then it's just a memory. We don't talk about it unless something comes up, unless she does something else different or something historical, or they bring her up. But we don't celebrate our accomplishments once we feel the accomplishment is done. She's going to be on the Supreme Court until she decides she doesn't want to be on the Supreme Court no more. Case in point, Clarence Thomas, when he became the second African-American man to make it to the Supreme Court, and it was all the Anita Hill hearings and everything like that. We talk about Clarence Thomas all the time, but now that he's on the Supreme Court, we don't talk about him in his standing. We talk about him in what people consider to be a sellout, or those words that people use, derogatory terms or whatever. We never concentrate on the fact that this man has excelled to the highest court in the land. Just a little more, so I want to put out there, just a little bit, because we always talk about Thurgood Marshall. We always talk about Thurgood Marshall, but we glaze over Clarence Thomas and head straight to Ketanji Brown Jackson. Just an observation. Take it for what it's worth. Big brother, Big Al, appreciate your support, bro. Appreciate the support. Just an observation of mine. The Trump classified documents. I don't know what to say, y'all. I don't know what to say. This is becoming a circus. Not my mortgage, not my circus. It's becoming a circus. And it's becoming a circus because this judge who he appointed that's overseeing this case has gone against everything of the norm in this case to side with the person that appointed her to the position. Now, I'm not saying that she's just outright doing it, but there's certain decisions that she's been making that aren't on the up and up with what normal cases would go through. And you're getting this feedback, not from just me with the microphone, but you're getting it from lawyers. You're getting it from former DOJ Attorney General William Barr, who a lot of people say, well, why would you even reference his name? I'm just telling you. Those type things. And these are the people that are seeing what she's doing and wondering, what is she doing? Why is she doing this? And then she's overriding the decisions made by the special master that they requested, because what he's doing, they don't feel is in the best interest of former President Donald Trump. Now, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole with that either. I'm just going to keep watching. But what I will say is this. Pay attention on your ballots. Now, these are at the judicial level, but pay attention on your ballots when the vote comes up of those who are running for judge positions in your district, in your communities, district attorneys, all the different positions that we talk about, because these people have aspirations to become Judge Cannon, Judge Brown Jackson, Judge Clarence Thomas. These people have aspirations to ascend to the highest levels, and they start at the low levels where they sneak in under the radar because we don't pay attention to what their beliefs and what their understandings are, how many cases they prosecuted, who they prosecuted, how they prosecuted, what their mentality is or their doctrine is as far as how they go about reading and deciding cases. Just something to put in your mind, because this is getting ugly, y'all. It's getting ugly. True colors are coming out with people where the scales of justice have never been even. The scales of justice have never been truly even. However, we have justices now that are on these courts, assigned to these courts, not because of what they know, not because of the information that they have, not because they're intelligent, but because somebody wants to put them there because they have the authority to, and they put them there for the best interest of what the long-term goal is for them to be able to impose their will on us. And when I say us as a whole of United States citizens, not just black and brown, white, no, as a whole, because it's all about power. You've heard me say this many times. It's all about power. Power and control is the end game. Go down. Say that, look down the damn ballot. Yeah, look down the ballot. I'm sorry, bro. I couldn't read it at first. Look down the ballot, as Brother Big Al said. Can't just go and just start checking boxes. Read. If you got, and you know what? I'm gonna do y'all a service. And I'm gonna put this out there. You don't want to read? You don't have to read. I'm gonna offer my services. If you see somebody or you hear about somebody in your district that you aren't sure about, you got questions about it, send me a message on Facebook. You send through Messenger. Send me a message with the person's name, what state, what position they're running for. I'll do the research for you and let you know what's going on. That's how that's how invested I am in these elections now. You send me the name, what position they're running for, who they're running against, and where they're at. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt to send you the information about what you think you don't want to read up on. That's how invested I am. because we all need to find time to do this. You can sit down and I've said, y'all gonna get tired of hearing me say, just watching these reality shows, watching Monday Night Football, and all that kind of stuff. But you don't have time to sit down and find out who these politicians are that are going to decide not only your future or your interests, but your kids, your grandchildren, and all that. What does that say? We got to get serious about this. We have to get serious about this. There was a vote this week called the Electoral Count Reform and Presidential Transition Improvement Act. I know that's a mouthful, but let me say it again. Electoral Count Reform and Presidential Transition Improvement Act. And this has to deal with how our elections and our electors are handled after we all go vote, as far as the electors being presented to the Senate and them voting to pass it, all this the fake electors they were sending up. This is to help prevent that. Let's just break it down simple terms. So they had a vote this week, and there's a committee, the Senate Rules Committee, has to advance the bill to the Senate for the final vote. The Rules Committee voted 14-1 to pass it. The one person who didn't want to pass it, Senator Ted Cruz from Texas. When you bring up Senator Ted Cruz, and I know my boy James Battle because he lives in Texas, so he's aware of Senator Ted Cruz. Cancun Cruz is what they call him. He did not want to pass this. And then he goes into his discussion why. But from the outside looking in of this, if this is going to do something for the senators and Senate and the Congress to have certain stipulations on how they can vote to not accept electors from a certain state, which is what they were trying to do this last election, then it should be a no-brainer for everybody. Understand, it went 14-1, and this is not all Republicans. There's just as many Democrats on that panel as it is Republicans, but he was the only one. And in that discussion, Senator Ted Cruz said this. Cruz indicated his case against the bill largely revolved around a few things: that it would diminish Congress's authority to root out voter fraud, that it would intrude on the constitutional authority of states to cast their electors as they see fit, and that it would be a step toward the federalization of elections. He also said, I don't believe senators from this side of the aisle should be supporting a bill that enhances the federalization of elections and reduces the ability of Congress to respond to the very serious problem of voter fraud. Now, he says this. James Battle, Rafael Cancun is a fraud. But he says this after everything we've seen in this last election. He says this with a straight face after everything he said in this last election. He says this after everything that was going on in Texas. He decided to pack up and take his family to Cancun, where the name Cancun Cruz comes in. All these things that Ted Cruz is the same person who supports Donald Trump, who called his wife ugly. Let's not forget that. He supports Donald Trump. And let's stick to politics right now. But what I'm saying is this. What they did with this vote to send it to the Senate, for me, is only symbolism. It's only symbolism to make it seem as though they're doing things to prevent the fact of what they don't want to happen that happened last time. Because behind the scenes, they're already working ways to manipulate whatever they want to manipulate anyway. But this is just to put out front for the people like you and me to say, okay, they're doing something. They putting something in place. They're not all corrupt, or they're not all trying to manipulate the system and everything. But if you listen to what Ted Cruz said, he revealed a lot about this vote and what it was all about. Because he even said in here, it diminishes Congress's authority to root out voter fraud, that it would intrude on the constitutional authority of states to cast their electors as they see fit. Let's start with the fraud. Congress's authority to root out voter fraud. In this last election, Congress had all the tools they needed to investigate and find out if there was voter fraud, to vote on it, and all these different things. They used those tools, found there was limited voter fraud, along with the Department of Justice, as long as the investigation is going on. So for him to say that it roots out Congress's authority to root out voter fraud, what he's saying basically is you're taking the control away from us to be able to put in these officers who we want by passing this. Number one, from my opinion and how I read it. The second part, it would intrude on the constitutional authority of states to cast their electors as they see fit. Pause right there. This goes into what I talked about 2 weeks ago with the people running for election officials in the different states, the governors in different states who can and who will and who do assign electors to go up and say who they and the state as a whole, their constituents, have put in place or voted to be president through their elections in that state. By him saying this, what he's saying is, it would intrude on the states to be able to do what they tried to do in the last election. So he doesn't want it there. He wants them to be able, because whatever happened in this last election that they weren't able to do, they're already working ways to fix that problem to be able to do what they want to do going forward. Just an observation from me. And the third part, and that it would be a step toward the federalization of elections. Okay. Now, from what I know to be true when it comes to elections, elections are federal in the big concept. They're only local as far as when you go in and vote, because everyone local is on that same ballot as the federal people who are running, which is the Congress, the Senate, the president. They're all on the same ballot. So for him to say the federalization, the only thing he's saying is the difference is the states, he feels that by doing this, the states are not going to have control over their own elections. However, if you go back to what I just said about them assigning their own electors, that becomes the federalization of it. He wants them to be able to dictate to the states, or for the states to have to go with what the federal consensus is about who won the election, no matter who won, by your vote in that state. I know it's a mouthful. I know it's a lot to take in, but at the end of the day, what he's coming up with is all the concepts to go against this bill that they put in this act they put in about the electors in the big scope of things, for them not to be able to, or to take the power out of the state's hands to a certain extent. That's the brass roots. That's the bottom basic part of it from what I've read and what I understand. And that's why I say we have to be aware of what these people are saying. Do not sit back and just say, he's a Republican, I'm not going to listen to him. Sometimes, and I say this jokingly many times to people. OT, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. I say this many times, but sometimes what you have to do is listen, watch, and pay attention to what you consider the enemy is doing. Because you learn more from watching your enemy than you do from ignoring your enemy. Let me say that again. You learn more from watching your enemy and their tactics and learning what they're trying to do than you do by ignoring them because you just don't like them. Take that in. Take that in. See, we tend to sit back and watch who we like. We take who we like, we pay attention to who we like, we criticize who we like. Let's just be real. We criticize them for certain things here and there. But what I'm saying is, if you watch those who you don't agree with, I'm not going to say enemies, those you don't agree with, if you sit back and watch them and listen, you will learn more than you ever thought you knew about those people. That's why I try to tell everyone, watch Fox News if you're not a fan of Fox News. Watch Newsmax if you're not a fan of Newsmax. Watch OAN if you're not a fan of OAN. Listen to former President Trump's rallies when he goes out here stumping for these other people running for office. Because what you hear, without bias, what you hear is the truth from what they understand it to be. And by listening to what their truth is, that's where you can understand and really get to the brass tacks of why what they're saying is a bunch of BS. It'll let you understand why you don't agree with them. But if you don't listen intently, you're just going by your biases rather than your knowledge. That's all I'm trying to say. Get the knowledge that you need to understand the depths. You can look at Donald Trump all the time. You can look at Ted Cruz. You can look at all these different people that run for politicians that may be somebody that you don't agree with. You may look at him and say, oh, here this bug go. Listen to him, though. Listen to them, because what you hear from them is the same thing, that that person that sits beside you that votes Republican or votes Democrat or whatever they may vote, is the same thing they believe. And while your coworker is sitting there understanding everything that these people have put out there, and you don't have a clue what they're putting out there, now you have some semblance of understanding why this person acts and does the things they do, whether it be outright or covertly. But if you don't pay attention, you don't know. You go by what CNN will tell you against Fox. You'll go what MSNBC will tell you against OAN. You'll go what regular news will tell you against any of the channels. But if you take the time to listen to different ones, like if there's a subject, just say for instance, I've been listening to the different channels because of what's going on with the classified documents. Case in point, if I turn on CNN will tell me everything that the Justice Department has as far as evidence and what they can do against Donald Trump in these classified documents. If I turn on Fox News, then I'm going to hear everything that the Justice Department and everybody else that's involved in this is doing just to take Donald Trump down. But they never go into the facts of what is the truth. They tell you their opinion about why they're going after him. It has to deal with Russiagate. It has to deal with this. But they never go into the brass tacks of the fact of he had classified documents that he shouldn't have had. They keep harping on this fact that he can declassify classified documents. The president has that power. But they never go into the fact that there's nothing showing that he ever took the course, which is a process, to declassify the documents. And then he sits on news and says that he thought about declassifying, and that's all it took. That's all it takes is for him to think, I want to declassify that, and it's declassified. He's I Dream a Genie. I've seen that post somewhere. Don't judge me. He just and blink his eyes, and it's declassified. But they're running with that part, but they're not giving those people who listen to that the facts that that's not how it works. On the other side, you're getting the facts, but you're also getting the bias that they don't like him. So you have to listen to both sides to truly get an understanding of where your opinion is. Because if you only listen to one opinion, you're only going to have one mindset. So you're not seeing the bigger picture. I'm not going to say it's going to change your mind about how you feel about Donald Trump. But I'm telling you, you'll have better insight and better knowledge about the whole process and what's going on. That's all. And I ain't telling you get consumed with it. Be aware of it. Just be aware of it. That's all. That's all. But there's stuff that's going on right now leading into this election. It's going to dictate a lot of things going forward after this election. You got the midterms now. This is a trial run. And I said this about January 6th, and I'm going to tell you one more time. These midterm elections, that are coming up right now, anything you see with voter suppression, trying to stop you from voting, what they're doing with the ballots, no drop ballots, no, mail-in ballots and all that kind of stuff is a precursor to 2024. Everything they're going to try in 2022 is a trial run to make sure they got everything in place within those 2 years. From the time we vote in 2022 until 2024, there's going to be a lot of manipulation in there to make sure that what they couldn't get right in 2022, they got all together. The game plan is set for 2024. And the people they're putting in place are the ones that are going to execute it if you don't go out and vote for your best interest rather than what you feel. Vote your best interest rather than what you understand. See where I'm going, right? TC, appreciate the support, my brother. Appreciate the support. That's all. That's why I continue to tell you about these things. That's why I continue to tell about these things. But we'll talk more about voting. We'll get more into that as we go. But let's talk about this stolen valor. This is a person, a Republican, J.R. Majewski. He's running for Congress in Ohio. And he has based his whole campaign about being an Air Force veteran. He's an Air Force veteran. I give him the benefit of the doubt. He's an Air Force veteran. But there's a lot of things that aren't adding up with his story about being and serving his time as an Air Force veteran. And they call it stolen valor. Let's just be honest. Stolen valor is what they call it. It's when you perpetrate a fact of something you say you did, or you wear a uniform, or you wear ribbons that you weren't awarded. All that type of stuff is considered stolen valor. I'm not going to go down and look it up if you need to. But stolen valor basically saying you're lying. You're lying about what you did while you were active duty, per se, or what happened to you, or why you didn't get promoted. All that comes into play. But here's how we go. So this guy, they said last week that he was punished and demoted after getting in a brawl in an Air Force dormitory in 2001. That's what the campaign said. He was demoted after he got into a brawl in a dormitory in 2001. This is the second part of the lies. We'll get into the first part in a minute. But in this, they pulled his military records, and the military records obtained since then by the Associated Press, however, offer a different account of the circumstances, which military legal experts say would have played a significant role in the decision to bar him from reenlisting. They indicate Majewski's punishment and demotion were the result of him being stopped for driving drunk on a U.S. air base in Japan in September of 2001. Now let's clear this up. He said, and his campaign has said, the reason he ended up getting out of the military in 2001, well, when he got out, but in 2001, they say he was demoted because he had a brawl, a fight in the dormitory, so they demoted him. But under further investigation, it says that he was demoted because he had a DUI while he was stationed in Japan. This is a person running for Congress in Ohio. This is why I tell you to pay attention to who these people are that are running. If he's going to lie to you about his service and try to change up the narrative or dictate the narrative of what and how and why he wasn't promoted or he got demoted or wasn't able to reenlist to something as simple as a fight in a dormitory, compared to the fact that he got demoted because he had a DUI, that's two different spectrums, the end of two different spectrums of what the reasoning was. Now, this is the second part of what he lied about. Now, let me digress for a minute. Because I served 21 and a half years, as you guys know. And I've heard a lot of different stories of why people got kicked out, why they didn't serve. I mean, I heard stories even before I went in. A young man, I'm not going to say no names, but a young man that, in my hometown that went away to the, I can't remember, I'm not going to say the branch of service, but he went away to the military, went away to basic training. And then came back. And when he came back, everybody was asking, what you want? Why you back, man? What happened? His story was he hurt his ankle while playing basketball, and they got rid of him. They discharged him. Now, I'm not the brightest light bulb in the socket, but I went to basic training, just like a lot of my buddies went to basic training. No time in basic training did you have time to play no basketball. Number one. Just me. Maybe it's different now. Maybe it's different when other people went through. Now, I know when I got to tech school, my tech training school, I was free to play ball, do all that stuff. But in basic training, I never had the opportunity to go play basketball or anything like that. Now, different branches of service may be different. However, I also know if he would have hurt his ankle playing basketball while he was there, they would have allowed him to heal, and then he would have started over from the beginning or wherever he ended up getting injured to stop the training. He would have started back up at that point before they got to the point of sending him home, because you have to think about the money they've already invested in you being there from the beginning. Now, I use that story to tell you this. There are a lot of people who feel that they have to sensationalize what they've done when they were active duty, why they didn't make it, why they were unable to continue with their career, and so on and so forth. I'm not telling you that you should question everybody's reasoning behind why they may have got out, kicked out, or anything like that, or why they got a dishonorable discharge. I'm not telling you to do that. But I am telling you, when you hear a politician telling you something completely different than what happened, you need to pause. You need to pause. Because if this politician who is going to be up there to legislate things that are going to go on with you as a constituent and me, as all of us, you have to understand that his integrity is already in question, because he can't even tell you the truth behind why he didn't fulfill his full commitment, or he did fulfill his commitment and wasn't able to stay past that. That's all I'm saying. I will never diminish anyone's service. He served. I'm cool with that. But don't sensationalize your service to try to make us feel that you've done something that you didn't. Case in point. Not only did he lie about the DUI, before that, which is what really opened the floodgates for him, he supposedly says, and this is how it started, Majewski has reportedly said he was a combat veteran who served a tour of duty under tough circumstances in Afghanistan. By his own account, he once went for more than 40 days in the country without a shower due to a lack of running water. Could be true, could not be true. I don't know. But in his records, here's what it says before I get into mine. His story came under intense scrutiny last week when the AP, Associated Press, citing military documents obtained through public records requests, reported that he did not deploy to Afghanistan, as he claimed, but instead spent 6 months based in Qatar, a longtime U.S. ally, where he helped load and unload aircraft. So now that brings up questions about, so now you say you were in Afghanistan, you didn't take a shower for 40 days because there was no running water, blah, blah, blah. They investigate. You were never on the soil in Afghanistan. You were at an outpost supporting things going in and out of Afghanistan. The latest revelation that Majewski was demoted for drunken driving adds another wrinkle, as we talked about. At the time, his campaign said in the email that Majewski was in a fight in the dormitory. We went through all that. I don't find pleasure in reporting when somebody lies, somebody tells untruths. I'm not gonna say lie, untruths. But come on, man. Come on. Let me just give it from my own viewpoint. I served 21 and a half years. In the 21 and a half years I served, I never deployed. Well, I won't say I never deployed, but I deployed one time for an exercise in Korea. One of my first tours in the Philippines, they sent me to Korea for Team Spirit for 30 days. Might have been 60 days. Can't remember the exact day, but I went over there. No danger, it was exercise. I had people, as I went through my career, first Gulf War, didn't get deployed. I ended up going to Korea. No problem. Second Gulf War, I was in Washington, D.C., and I deployed some of my troops over to the war. Never once have you ever, or will you ever hear me say that I deployed to any location that I didn't deploy to, because it diminishes everyone that I know or I've come in contact with, or anyone who served during that time that got deployed. It diminishes their standing when I lie to try to bring up my standing. I say I was somewhere that I wasn't. Integrity is a big factor. Why lie about where you were, knowing you weren't there, thinking that it's going to put you at a different standing than somebody else just by saying that? Especially when you know that there were many people that deployed that didn't make it back. Take that into account the next time you hear this representative or whatever it is, Majewski, his name up in Ohio, running for office to be a congressman who continues to lie and lie and lie about what type of service he had or what he did while he was active duty, that they went back and checked and he never did any of it. None of it. But he wants to be one of your congressmen. He wants to be one of your legislators. He wants to be up there to write and legislate what goes on in this country. And he can't even tell the truth about what he did while he was in service. Yeah, I got in fights. I got in fights in the dormitory, got punished. Did it get to the point where they put me out or they wouldn't let me re-enlist? No. Did I have situations that I was in that I probably should have been punished and put out? Whatever? Probably so. Anybody that served has been behind that 8-ball once or twice in their career. However, you don't use that to try to cover up what happened then to try to elevate yourself now. It just doesn't make sense to me. Joshua Montalbano, my brother, what's going on, Montalbano? Absolutely, tell it, bro. It's true, bro. I mean, we serve. Appreciate your service, bro, over there in fighting with the Army. We ain't gonna hold that against you. You be an Air Force guy. Appreciate you tuning in and listening, bro. But everybody that has served knows, and it gives you a certain feeling, an uneasy feeling about people like that. And then you have to ask about the people that serve with him. How do they feel? How do they feel? You know what I'm saying? How do you feel about somebody you serve with when you know they're lying? And you know they didn't do what they said. There's like somebody saying that, case in point, John Kerry. Everybody remember John Kerry about I can't remember, it was something about the speedboat, tailboat, whatever it was, something that he said he did, they say he didn't do and all that. And that was a big uproar and everything like that. They dug and dug. John McCain, they dug into him. He was a prisoner of war. They dug to try to say that he didn't do this and he didn't do that. He sold out the other prisoners and all these different stories that come up. But unless you were there, you really don't know. But the records speak for themselves of whether you were where you were when you say you were there. And if you weren't there, shut up and stop saying you was there. Appreciate that, James Battle. Swift boat. Thank you, my brother. See, that's why I like y'all. Y'all will help a brother out. I can't remember everything. Swift boat. But to this day, John Kerry thought he may be a great man, and he served a whole lot of different positions in this government. But the Swift boat will always hang over his head because there's questions about what he said and what other people say actually happened. Happens all the time. But when you just outright lie, you may have, let me go here for a minute. You may have revisionist history where you implement a couple things here, a couple things there, but you had to be there. That's all I'm saying. Make sure you was there when you come up with this story you coming up with about what happened over there in that case. So this is, like I said, stolen valor. The number one trope that comes out of people when they are either fabricating a military record or, in this case, embellishing a record is they fall back to it's classified. So Majewski came up, and when they started asking about these deployments, where he went, what he was doing, and all these things, first thing he said, it's not in my records because it's classified. It's classified. It's classified. I've heard that so many times. I can't talk about it because that was a running joke with us. Something went on, and this is back when you was like running the streets and stuff. We was in the military. That was some lingo we used to use. Somebody asked, man, where was you at last night? Man, that's C-14 classified. I can't discuss that. That's C-14 classified. There's no such thing as C-14 classified, but it was just a running joke that we would use when somebody would ask you where you were. You knew where you was at, but they didn't need to know. So you tell them C-14 classified, it makes the mind wander. Stolen valor. It also says this guy, Ed Caffrey, who investigates stolen valor cases and teaches journalism at Eastern New Mexico University, he's the one that brought this up. And he also said, there's no junior enlisted air transportation specialist who was doing something so secret that 20 years later, it still needs to be classified. And why didn't he just do what the former president did? Thinking in his mind, it's declassified. And let it out. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm having a little fun this morning. Got two more things I want to talk about real quick. Redlining. There's a Justice Department investigation of a New Jersey bank and they reached a $13 million settlement in mortgage discrimination. This ran from 2015 to 2021. Lakeland Bank failed to provide mortgage lending services to the Black and Latino communities in the Newark area. So they came up with a $13 million settlement, mortgage discrimination from 2015 to 2021. They stopped people from building generational wealth, being able to get loans on houses and everything. And it was only done against Black and Latino borrowers. But all the branches for this bank are in predominantly white areas. So that's where it came into play. But what their settlement came down to, which I still have a problem with this, it says Lakeland's efforts to remedy the situation included at least $12 million contribution to a loan subsidy fund for Black and Hispanic residents in the region, as well as $750,000 for advertising, outreach, and consumer education, plus $400,000 for the development of community partnerships to provide services that widen access to residential mortgage credit. A full-time community development officer will also be hired to oversee the growth of lending in the Newark region's minority neighborhoods, where 2 new Lakeland branches will be open. I understand the settlement. I understand what they're saying sounds good as far as what they're going to go do going forward now that they've been caught. Let's just be real. Now that they've been caught, and this went from 2015 to 2021. I understand all that. But let's think about all the people who were trying to get these loans who were denied. Let's think about all those people who thought they were going to have home ownership and they were denied, not because they didn't qualify, because of how they look. And the only consequence is they got to pay a $13 million. They may reach the $13 million settlement, and then they talk about all the money they're going to use towards what they're going to do to try to fix right the wrongs. My problem with it is this. This company knew what they were doing for a total of 6 years. 2015 to 2021. That's more than 6. What is it? 15, 21. Take care of one. You get where I'm going. Yeah, 6 years. Why not shut them down? Why not make them eliminate their business? They had no standing or no true understanding of what these people that they were turning down, how it would impact them without being able to buy a house because they wouldn't loan to them. But they're allowed to, think about this, $13 million settlement. They have $13 million to settle. They had these $12 million here, $750,000 there, and all this money to put towards these initiatives. But they wouldn't approve or loan a Black or Latino $400,000, maybe $500,000 to buy a house that they could call home. And not just one, many, from the years of 2015 to 2021. They never give us the amount of people that were impacted, but they allowed them to do a settlement. Case in point, let's transition. Byron Allen is suing McDonald's. He's suing the McDonald's Corporation for $10 billion. He has a $10 billion lawsuit, and he's accusing the fast food giant of failing to advertise with Black-owned media. Allen and his company, Allen Media Group, will argue in court that McDonald's violated civil rights laws after a federal court judge found that oral arguments was not enough to resolve the case. Allen claimed that McDonald's spends just $5 million of its $1.6 billion annual advertising budget on African-American owned media and has refused to advertise on his networks, which include the Weather Channel and Comedy TV. Per the lawsuit, the media mogul accusing McDonald's of relegating his TV networks to an African-American tier that has a smaller budget. Now, I've talked about this before, and the first person I heard this from about the advertising dollars was through Roland Martin, Unplugged, Unfiltered. And they talk about how these companies, big companies, have a certain amount of money set aside for advertisement, annual advertising budgets, and it runs into billions of dollars. But they only give a small portion and a small percentage to the African-American companies that want to advertise. So basically, what I'm saying is they'll give MSNBC or somebody like McDonald's has been giving them maybe millions of dollars, but they only have a $5 million budget for all for all African American owned media across the board. They will not advertise on, Byron Allen's Weather Channel or Comedy TV. He want to know why. So he's suing them. He says it's discrimination about the practices that they're using to put the money out. Make a long story short, they hired the other company, McDonald's, has hired Loretta Lynch. Remember Loretta Lynch? Former Attorney General for President Obama. They hired her to fight for and argue the case for McDonald's Corporation. And she says their complaint is about revenue, not race. And plaintiffs' groundless allegations ignore both McDonald's legitimate business reasons for not investing more on their channels and the company's long-standing business relationships with many other diverse owned partners. When you hear stories like this, think about it. I just talked about the everyday citizen being redlined from getting a loan to buy a house. And now we transition into someone, a mega mogul, media mogul, Byron Allen, arguing about how much money is being spent on Black media. These are not just coincidental things. These are things that these companies choose to do. They have the understanding that we don't have to do this for you. So we're going to do everything not to finance you for a home. We're going to do everything not to give you advertising dollars from our budget, because we're not going to use you. We're going to use someone else that don't look like you. Now, as I say, when I bring these things up, as far as the black, white, or whatever, the racism and everything like that, I bring it up for a reason. You have to be aware of what's going around. It may not be happening to you directly, but you have to be aware that it is happening. You may not be the one doing it, but somebody is doing it, and somebody is preventing someone to move on to the next level of their life by just buying a house that they probably is their dream. You hear people talk about their dream home. Do you know how many people in the United States of America have never owned or bought a home? Haven't been able to buy a home, which is normally every person's dream is to own their home, to have a place they can call home. And then you hear stories, not because they're not financially capable, but when they do become financially capable, they can't get anybody to give them a loan. Not because they don't have the credit, not because they don't have the money, because they choose not to because of how they look. And then you have somebody like Byron Allen, who's been investing in becoming this media mogul, getting his things together. The Weather Channel, when he bought that, people was in shock. He has Comedy TV. He's also in the midst of trying to buy some other things. He just bought the Black News Network. So he's buying these things up, which in order for these things to function, you have to have advertising dollars associated with it. People need to advertise. But if they're not giving you those dollars at the same level they're giving the big channels, the ESPNs, the MSNBCs, the ABC, and all these different ones, how are you supposed to survive? Because your advertising dollars that are given to you by them advertising on you keeps you going. You put it back in. Just like we talked about last week, kind of different, but when OT talked about the apparel that I was selling, the t-shirts and everything, it's the same concept, just on a smaller scale. So when you talk about advertising dollars and people not being able to get this, or people not being able to buy a home only because of how they look, and the people making this decision are here, and they're the ones that are holding the purse strings, yeah, sue them if you have the ability to. Sue them, which he does. You got to remember, Byron Allen also sued, he was suing Comcast at one time for the same type of practices. Same type of practices. But he has the money to do it. He has the money to do it. I'm going to finish with this last one before we get into Mind, Body, and Soul, because we're coming up on an hour. A New Jersey man was caught urinating on his ex-wife's grave nearly 5 decades after the divorce. A New Jersey man was arrested and caught urinating and defecating on his ex-wife's grave nearly 50 years after the divorce. He was 48 to be exact. 43-year-old Michael Andrew Murphy, the son of the woman, was horrified as he captured the desecration on September 18th. Let me just put this in simple terms. You got to be bitter to go and urinate and defecate on somebody's grave. What anger are you carrying with you to make you want to go do something like that? What they said was he was going out there every day, recently, every day, urinating and defecating on his ex-wife's grave. They were only married for 1 year. They were married for 1 year. They had a child. She told him the child was here. He didn't claim the child. Whatever the bitterness was, what was in there, and the guy that seen him defecating and doing all this, the one that caught him, is not his child. It was an older child, his daughter. But supposedly, he's been doing this, and here's the part that jumped out at me. His wife that he's married to now is with him every time he goes and does this on his ex-wife's grave. The man's 68 years old. They were briefly married, but they had a bitter breakup in 1974. 1974, 2022. And he going out there urinating and defecating on his ex-wife's grave. Someone he hadn't spoke to. They had no communication. They had no interaction. They didn't even deal with each other after 1974. No communication at all. She died in 2017. But when the family was going out there and seeing these bags of, defecation, they thought first time that it was somebody that was walking a dog and just happened to drop the bag or just threw the bag or whatever. But they kept going back and they seen all these different, all the time smelled like urine. There was definitely bags of doo-doo on the grave and everything. So they put a video up. They seen him doing it. They couldn't get his description at the time. But then the son went out and actually hid somewhere and videoed it with his camera. They gave it to the police and everything. And that's when they found out who exactly he was. Cemetery desecration, which may involve stealing from or vandalizing a plot, grave, or burial place, can be prosecuted in New York State if the damages exceed $250. Murphy, who is the son, has met this threshold for damages after hiring a hazmat company to remove his mother's urine-soaked decorations, having her headstone professionally cleaned, and replacing some of the surrounding grass, he said. Everybody come a little closer with me. If you're 68 years old and you were married to somebody or in a relationship with somebody for about 1 year, and it's been that long, over 40-something years, and you feel the need to go and urinate and defecate on their grave, get some help. Go lay on somebody's couch. Find out what demons you are working with. What would cause you to desecrate the burial place of someone's mother, someone's grandmother, a human being? 68 years old. This is what we doing. This is what I got to look forward to. All my enemies out there, don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. Just tell me now how you feel about me. Don't go to my grave. I'm resting peacefully. Don't do that. Every week, good morning, sis. Appreciate you. What is going on, y'all? Woo, what's going on? 68 years old, and this is what we doing. I wish I might. Let's go and get into this. Mind, body, and soul. The year 2022. We're in October, y'all. 1 October. Year 2022. And it's, we're taking each moment for what it is. 1,440 moments. That's 1,440 minutes in a 24-hour period. Enjoy each and every one of those moments for what it has to offer in your life. Today's mind, body, and soul. Nothing in depth. just something I want to talk to y'all about. Health is wealth. Health is wealth. You know, Frank Miller, have a great day. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. Health is wealth. I know everybody probably seen this and they didn't think too much about it. Coolio. Coolio passed away this week at a friend's house. From the report I read, they said he was over there with his friend, went to use the bathroom, didn't come back. So the friend went and checked on him. He was laying out on the bathroom floor. Paramedics showed up. He called paramedics. Paramedics showed up, performed CPR on him for 45 minutes. Say he died of a heart attack, cardiac arrest. 59, I think it was, 59 years old, Coolio. And I was talking to a couple people this week, to be exact. And we got to talking about health, physicals. I got my consult this week. Another buddy of mine had his consult last week. And one of them friends, and I'm not going to put his name out there, but we got talking about high blood pressure. And he asked me if I've ever had any problem with high blood pressure. I said, no, not. My biggest thing is cholesterol. That's about the only thing that I usually have a problem with, other than, joints, that kind of stuff. Well, we got to talking about that, and he was concerned about his high blood pressure, which I would be too. Because a lot of us suffer from high blood pressure, pre-diabetic, all these different things we can think about. But when we got to talking, he said high blood pressure it runs in his family. So it's basically like a hereditary thing. So he expects it, but it made him pause when they brought it up, because it's higher than it's ever been. But we got to talking, and it goes back to a conversation I've had on here before about our bodies. And some of you have heard this before, but I'm going to reiterate it again just so we have an understanding of what goes on with us, because we're getting older, y'all. We're getting older. Our bodies function at their maximum capacity, what do you call it? The maximum capability it can. From the time you're born, your organs are growing until you start digesting and taking things into your body. You have to remember our bodies, and I put it in the correlation of a car. Some of y'all heard this before, but bear with me, because some people haven't, so I want you to break it down like this. You do oil changes on your car every so many miles, flush the oil out, and then they put new oil in. And for your car, that's a good thing. You change the oil, it runs. They said just keep changing the oil. At some time, they'll flush it, because each time you change the oil, the oil comes out, but there's still parts that stick to those operating functions of the engine. Then you got water pumps that go out, belts break, all those different things within the engine. But the engine will never operate. Once it's driven so many miles, it's not going to operate at the capability it did when you first bought the car, when it had 0 miles on it, at its full capacity. I want you to take what I just said and correlate it to your body. Your organs that you currently have are the same organs you had when you were born. Sometimes as we get older, people tell you do a cleanse to cleanse your colon, cleanse your liver, cleanse everything in you. You drink things, put it in, and everything like this. But what you have to remember is your body over time, those bodily organs that you have are functioning each and every day. And as years go by, the capability of them to function at their highest potential decreases over time. And not only over time, but it also decreases about what you eat, what you drink, whether you smoke, what you breathe in, all those things that come through your mouth, through your nose, through your eyes, as far as what you see, with your mental, all these things affect your health. As much as we don't look at it that way, they affect our health, where our body does not operate at the full capacity that it used to. Your joints start getting old, crickety, and all this kind of thing. I say all this because here's what it comes down to. Your heart, blood pressure, all those different things, your kidneys, unless you had a replacement, which came from somebody else. Let's clear this up. A replacement comes from somebody else, and unless you know their true history, you don't know how good that heart is, or that kidney is, or that liver is as well. But I digress. If you smoke, no matter how long you smoked, if you smoked occasionally, everything you took in has affected your body. If you drank, everything you drank, alcohol, sweet tea with the sugar, all the sodas, all these things have affected your organs and your body. The air we breathe, if you're in an environment that's real smoggy, or you work in a warehouse where there's exhaust and all these things, it affects your body. Your body, your organs will never function at the full capacity they did before you started doing any of the things you do up to this point in your life. Get your checkups. Have them do intense checkups on your body. Don't just go in there and tell them you want a physical. And if you do a colonoscopy, get the colonoscopy. If you need a prostate exam, get your prostate exam. Do all the things that you know you need to do for your body and your internal organs to find out what is going on with your body. Because here's the thing, those numbers that fluctuate, they fluctuate for a reason. They're telling you that there's something going on with your body that cause your blood pressure to go from here, and the next time you check it is here, and then it comes down here, and then it's up here. It's fluctuating for a reason. There's something that is causing these fluctuations, and until you go and get it checked, you will never know. I'm not saying this, and as I mentioned in the beginning, we had Coolio passed away. We had other people we see die of heart attacks, and they may work out every day, but there's something in our body that's not functioning right to cause these things. But unless you get checked, you will never know. Do your annual checkups. Eliminate those things that you know aren't good for you, those vices, as we say. We all have vices. Some of us like fried foods. Some of us like our shots of cognac. Some of us like, beer. All the different things you can think of that we know are not good or that are pleasurable to you are going to affect you somehow, some way. As I had this discussion with my buddy yesterday, I told him, I said, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to go cold turkey. You want to wean yourself off of those things. You want to get yourself and wean yourself off the bad things and start incorporating the good things into your body. You'll never get back to the way your heart, your liver, your kidneys were back when you was 20, 25, and you might have been drinking things during that time. But your body's not going to go back there. Your organs won't transform back to what they used to be. But by changing things, your organs will function at a different capacity than they are now if you're doing the wrong thing. I say all that to just say, get your checkups, do your blood work, go to your doctor. You pay insurance every month. Every month. You pay insurance rates. You pay an insurance premium every month for your health. Some of us don't even use it. Why? Car insurance is in case you have an accident. Health insurance is in case you get sick. But it's also to prevent things from happening and not finding out until you get sick that there's been something going on with your body that you don't find out because you're sick. And because you're sick, it's been something that you could have prevented before if you would have went to the doctor and did your normal checks that you should have done. Just a public service announcement. I think it's something everybody needs to hear. We're coming into the end of another year. I mean, we're in October. Some people haven't had their physical this year. Go get your physical. Get the checks. If you're over 50 or if you're at 50, get your prostate exam done, man. Women, make sure you're getting your pap smears, your mammograms. Do all the things, and that's just not the basics of it. But those are the things that we always hear. Get your pap smear, get your mammogram, get your prostate check, do your colonoscopy, do an EKG. Have them draw your blood. Do all the tests. When they ask you, we think we're going to test, run it all. How many? Take all the blood you need. And I don't like needles. This should be real. But when I go in there to do lab work, and my doctor puts a thing, I tell her, put everything in there that you need to check about me. Because when they take this blood, I want them to check everything. Not everything, everything that's going on with my body. Because your blood will tell everything that you need to know. Get your checks, y'all. Get your checks. That's all I'm saying is get your checks. Gone too soon is what most time we say. When someone passes away, 48, 50, whatever, whenever somebody passes away, he's gone too soon. I'm not even going to agree with that. When it's your time, it's your time. But you have to do things at this time when you have the time to take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Do what you got to do. Somebody needs you. Somebody needs you here, walking, talking, and being able to function. That's all I'm saying. Terrence Collins, most health plans have zero out-of-pocket expense for preventative care, annual physicals, mammograms, etc. There it is. There it is. Use it. It's there for you. Use it. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. For today, I appreciate everybody tuning in. And as I say, we're 10 years, baby. We've been on 10 years. We had our celebration last week. A lot going on. We're going to be talking about these elections coming up. I'm still going to be bringing you information about who's putting this propaganda out there, who's lying, who might be lying. But I want to give you the information so you can make an honest choice. And I also will tell you this. I'm going to repeat this again. If you're one of those people that just watch local news or watch one certain large market news, CNN, all those, MSNBC, Fox, OAN, or whatever. If you only watch one of those, I would charge you to start watching more. And I'm not saying you got to sit and watch the whole hour. If there's a certain story you want to hear about, tune in and listen to it. Listen to what they're saying. Listen what they're talking about. Listen how they're presenting it. Because there's always, and I'm a true believer in this, there's always three sides to a story. Their side, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. If you go with that concept and you go with that thinking, when you tune into these shows, you'll come out with better knowledge that you'll understand. And then you get an understanding of why these people are saying this, why these people are saying that, and why where you fall in the middle, let you come to your own conclusion about what's really going on and how you want to judge and go about voting when it comes to voting. And you should do that about life as well. You can hear something from somebody and hear something from somebody else, and it'd be two completely different stories. And sometimes we'll side with the person that we think is more reliable. But sometimes the person we think is more reliable may sway that story a little bit to be on their side rather than you coming up with your own conclusion about where it's really at in the middle. That's all I'm saying. As I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely, keep your faith in God. I'll see y'all again next week, and I'm out of here. I'll holler at y'all. Peace.